Prepare, respond, survive. When seconds count, train with the best. Fire facilities, custom steel towers built for real-world fire training. Be ready, be resilient.
The opinions, viewpoints, and advice shared in this podcast are solely those of the host, Dave McGlynn, and should not be interpreted as reflecting or endorsed by the Department of the Army or the Department of Defense Fire and Emergency Services.
All right. Welcome to another fire engineering podcast, The Training Officer. I am your host, Dave McGlynn. If you're new to the show, thank you for joining in. Go through this every month. So with each new guest comes new listeners, new viewers, whatever it is. So with that background on the show, we try to talk about training, right? It's in the title, Training Officer. But we don't just pigeonhole it to that. Training encompasses everything. So we talk to everybody about everything. This month is October. So between the breast cancer awareness and then Halloween coming up and Fire Prevention Week and all that good stuff, one of the themes that the magazine Fire Engineering is doing is engine company. And I'm joined by a great guest, a guy that's a friend of mine, guy that understands training, understands leadership, understands the importance of the engine company. It doesn't just do engine work. He recently finished publishing, and it's out since about a year ago, a book that he co-authored with Arthur Ashley called The Nontraditional Truck Company. And in that book, they talk about doing truck company work, but not being assigned to just your bread and butter truck company. So tonight I'm joined by Chief Jim Silvernail. Chief, thank you so much for joining me tonight, brother. I appreciate you taking the time.
Dave, thanks for having me. True honor.
Yeah, the honor is all mine. Trust me, you're doing me a solid. We made this happen, so I appreciate it. Those that are watching get to see. I'm very envious because Chief Silvernail has like the coolest office ever. If you look at his background, it's not fake. It's not like a green screen. Like that's literally like he's in some old school firehouse.
It is a cool old firehouse built in 1929. Not as old as some, but still pretty old.
That's still cool, man. Like I love when I see you on this and I'm just like, dude, that office is awesome. Like I would love that.
Most people think I'm at home because of the staircase that goes upstairs. So that used to go up to the old bunk room. And it's a part of my office, which is really cool. Yeah,
it's too cool. I love it. All right, so we'll dive into it. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, what inspired you to get into fire service, why you're passionate about training, and a little bit about your latest book, the Nontraditional Truck Company.
Sure. So, so I'm Jim Silvernail. I unfortunately have all this on today. I don't ever always wear this. I've got meetings today, but I am a fire chief, but I wasn't always a fire chief. I currently am in St. Louis County, Missouri. We have some notable people from St. Louis County right outside St. Louis. Our good friend Jason Hovelman, Brian Zeitz, a couple others, all from the board. Larry Conley from City of St. Louis, but I'm in the county. But I've been in the county operating in this county for about 28 years. I started off as a firefighter in a small town next to St. Louis and moved to a bigger district a couple years after that, where I worked through the ranks. I was a firefighter, lieutenant, a captain, which was by far the best job in the world, being a captain on whatever truck you're on or engine. It's just the best there is. Then battalion chief, and then I moved here to Kirkwood. Took the chief's role almost 9.5 years ago. But, I've always been in operations. It's always been my thing. It's very important, fire prevention, EMS. I am a paramedic. But I will tell you, my main focus is operations, basically standard operating guidelines and so forth, which has really been kind of my thing in my career. In 2013, I had the great opportunity to write my first book for fire engineering, which I thought they were crazy accepting a book from an unknown kid from suburban America. I was a captain at the time, but that was 12 years ago. I wrote the book probably 13 years ago. I had my first article in fire engineering in 2011, and it kind of went into a book. I didn't think I had enough material, but basically, I know where to stick, and that is in my suburban market. And I don't try to tell you how to do things in the urban market. Very rarely do I get into the rural market, but I know a little thing or two about suburban America. I had the fortune of going all over and teaching throughout this country in suburban markets. We're pretty similar in a lot of things we do, including the topic we're going to talk about tonight. Yeah, so that's been me. And like I said, I wear a couple different hats. Currently, I'm the treasurer of the International Association of Fire Chiefs, and that's got me a little busy. But I don't want to confuse everybody. I'm still a firefighter. Even though I rank as fire chief, I still am a firefighter. But yeah, that's basically me. So yeah, great to be here, Dave.
No, I appreciate it. It's important to cover that aspect too, because it's genuine. Like I try to pride myself on that. Like being the fire chief is something that we do in our department, and yeah, like those that become fire chief, typically they'd be lying if they said they didn't aspire to get to that point in their career. But in order to be an effective fire chief, you have to keep training, you have to keep attending classes, all that stuff, the cliche stuff, but it's real. So I was just glad to hear you say it. And then the captain position is the best position. I mean, I tell people that are captains now at my department, I'm like, dude, like, savor this.
Cherish it.
Yeah, it doesn't get better than that. Like it doesn't. The headaches get more, and you also just deal with a whole level of bureaucracy that you just weren't prepared for when you put on more bugles.
I missed one important fact. You asked about the training aspect and why it's important too. And so I had a very good fortune of also teaching in our fire academy for 12 years. Well, no longer than that, but I was a lead for 12 years, basically on truck company operations. And I can't tell people enough how important the training aspect is, not only to hone your craft, but to really make you a well-rounded fire officer. If you want to get out and learn something or learn how to be an effective leader, you have to communicate. And getting inside those classrooms for me was the main thing that did it for me. Not only the classroom, but also the drill field and what have you. But it's just so important to an officer's career. I can't stress it enough.
No, I totally agree with that. I think, even as we continue on, the less training you're doing, the more removed you are from it, and the harder it is to get a finger on the pulse of it. So, no, I'm with you. I couldn't agree more. So let's talk about, it's kind of the theme of the show, but tying into the book. So I really like the book. I enjoy it. I don't say that just because we're friends. Like, I'm very particular on literature that I'll embrace and that I'll also endorse publicly, and I'll tell people or recommend it. And anything that you've put out, I'm very aligned with. Maybe that's why we are friends. But so even if you're riding an engine company, why do you think it's critical to still train on truck company operations?
I think, especially in our world where you have limited or no dedicated truck companies, it is absolutely essential. I can tell you from being a training officer and just being a captain on a basically a squad company, that the thing that's going to lack in a truckless world is your truck company proficiency. And it's just because you become so reliant, like, oh, my truck, my whatever vehicle I arrive on has got hose, a pump. It might have a ladder on top. It may not. But the thing is that everybody focuses on that engine company function when we know putting out fire takes a team effort and a coordination of all kind of functions that go in to make that fire attack successful. There's a lot of functions that are involved than just opening up a nozzle valve and flowing water on a fire. You have to get to the fire. You have to identify where the fire is at. You got searches to do. You have all kind of different functionality that you might not do on a daily basis. And you have to accept the fact that might be your function on the fireground. And you can't pull the Homer Simpson, well, this is my first day on the job or I'm new here. You have to be ready for every fire that you go to. So you have to be prepared even for those truck company functions that you might normally not get assigned on a routine basis. But they're just as important as the actual engine company functions.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. And I want to just stress, like, I'm not trying to advocate that we need to replace the need for ladder trucks, but let's just be real. Not everybody has the funding for it. I mean, ladder trucks are going for almost $2 million now, which is just absurd. That's just unjustified, but I digress. But the physicality, the actual ladder truck itself is far and few between. Not everybody has them. The availability isn't there. And then the big cities that have them, the availability or response time, who knows, how far out they may or may not be. The city could be doing cutbacks. So their thought process is, well, there's a truck that's 15 miles away in the city, so that's good enough. We have a truck company. It's like, yeah, well, it's 15 miles away in a city. So, how long until it gets there? So that's the thing is there's always engines, we're fortunate in the fire service across America that while we don't have enough trucks, which we should, there's plenty of engines, right? So yeah, we need to train on engine work so that we put the fire out, but somebody's got to go to the roof. Somebody's got to conduct a search. Somebody's got to be assigned a writ. If there's VES or VEIS that has to happen, somebody's got to secure utilities, whatever it is, right? And if there's not a traditional truck on scene, and we got 3 engines on scene, we're pissing in the window already because everybody thinks they're supposed to be stretching a line. Well, if every rig is pulling line and nobody threw ground ladders yet, or nobody's conducted a search, or nobody's secured utilities, we got a problem. Yeah,
it's exactly right. And you can't rely on one vehicle to do all the work, which I know we're going to talk about here in a second. But if you detail a company, hey, this is my truck company, but it's on the far side of town, and you get a fire on the west part of town and your truck's on the east part of town, I got news for you. Truck work can't wait. It has to happen right now, especially if you're coordinating a fire tech. But more importantly, everybody's job on the fire ground is a search. I don't care who you are. Everybody is there to search and to make those rescues. It doesn't matter what rig you come on. But if you're doing searches late in the game, you're like, I'm at the command car and I'm checking off, hey, is the primary be done? That's too late, man. Right. You got to make sure those standard operating guidelines have hit that and making sure that stuff happens. And if you're waiting on a truck or something with a ladder to arrive to make that happen, I think you're really putting yourself behind the 8 ball. You're really not doing a service because you're not going to do it in a timely manner.
No, I agree with that. I totally agree with that. So, one of the other things that at least is a pet peeve of mine, so I don't know necessarily if it is for you, but we're going to talk about it, is because we're talking about this one side of where we don't always know if we're going to get a truck, et cetera, right? But that said, we find ourselves where, and I'm not picking on our brothers in blue with the cops, but we find ourselves having engine companies that are just taking the A side. Just for argument of the interview in the show, we'll just call it the A side. I'm not going to. That's a different subject for later. But gumming up the very front of the scene, right? So one of the other things that we got to train on with this engine company stuff is leaving that room for the truck. So we always talk about leaving room for the truck, but sometimes that's easier said than done. So from your experience, what should officers and drivers be thinking about when positioning their apparatus to support the truck work and to keep that tactical flexibility?
Sure. So my co-authored buddy, Arthur Ashley, puts it very well. And his point is that you can stretch hose, you can't stretch a ladder. So if you come in, let's say you're on a quint, or if you're later arriving, but if you're first due, how do you operate as a quint chauffeur? The answer is, well, you place the apparatus like you're a truckie, but you got to have the idea that you're going to be doing engine work too. But the whole thing is that ladder is going to get precedent because you only have so much ability to make that ladder, make it work on the structure. If you're going to get 2 sides, if you're going to get scrubbed, if you're going to get as much of the structure as you can, it's got to have the address. It's got to own the A side of the building. But I will tell you, it's going to be a challenge in some of these systems where, let's say, your quint or your truck comes way late in the arrival order. Some of these narrow streets in suburban America, it's a challenge. And also the way we do water supply. I'll be honest. Have you in your area, do you reverse out? I can tell you this area does not reverse out ever. And it's not because it's a school of thought. There are 2 reasons. One is the staffing. If I've only got 3 person on the apparatus, do I really want to stop at the plug, drop somebody off, and wait to get in it? No, we want to be inside those buildings quick. We're not afraid to use booster water, and we can also use booster backups if we have to. But the second real reason is our setup on our apparatus. If you look at these engine companies now, they're really not set up to reverse out. I mean, I've asked people in my classes, hey, have you ever seen a hose turned on its side? They're like, I don't even know what you're getting at. I don't know. Well, everything is flat loaded because it's meant to deploy. Well, there's a time and place where we used to pull off horseshoes, throw them in the front yard and take off to the plug, which still happens in a lot of your urban departments. We don't do that in suburban America just because of the variables I just told you. But what that does is that creates problems. If you're dropping large diameter hose coming up the narrow stretch, you're already causing issues for getting those ladders in place. So, you make every effort to get that ladder in front of the building, but if you can't, don't forget this, and that is you still have ground ladders on your apparatus. And a lot of us think, oh God, I can't get the aerial in front. Well, guess what? The 25, the 24s, the 35s, the 28s, those still have value in what we're doing. So if you can't get in the front, make sure you make every effort to get those ladders up on a structure. Because how many times I'll do this as a chief, I don't Monday morning quarterback, but I'll walk up and I'll just take a last minute glimpse. Fire's probably out by the time I get there anyway. Guys do a great job, but you'll look and I look for a couple things. One is how many ladders are up, how many sides of the building have ladders, because we take it for granted. Oh, I had a fire on the second floor. I pull one line off. I hit the room and contents. It's out. That time it might have been out, but you know what happens on the 9th or 10th time, and you have a problem, and you got members trapped on upper floors. That's the wrong time to yell, "Go get ladders!" You want to be ready and be consistent on every fire that you go to.
No, I'm with you. I think that one of my pet peeves is obviously is leaving room for the truck, but then also most engines. I understand not all, but most engines carry ground ladders on them, and it drives me absolutely batshit if I go on scene and I don't see ground ladders thrown because of that thought process of either the type of construction of the building. Well, doesn't matter. They're not there for anything other than the firemen might need to be able to bail out. The other stuff is a bonus, but the priority is that our people can get out and go down that ladder if they need to, or we can run up the ladder and try to help them if we need to, et cetera. But also leaving that room for the truck. And you're right, it's tough. There's certain tight alleys, there's certain tight roads. That's why you go out and train on your area. But if you're going to a fire, try to go in. If there's access to an opposite way, try to go in opposite of where you think the truck's run route is going to be, simply so that if you have to lay out, you're not gumming up the side that the truck's coming in already. You know what I mean? That's another thing I've noticed that we failed, where you have 2 points of entry into where the location of the fire is, and the engine will go in the same route that the truck's going. No, call that in. Say, hey, we're laying out from here. This way the truck maybe then has to pivot and go around the opposite way, or you go around the opposite way.
That's a great point. Why is everybody coming the same angle?
Right. Run routes should not be identical, and the problem is we've become too reliant on technology as the answer to that. And I'm not picking on guys that ride the front seat. It's just we're so accustomed to watching that on our phone, or if we have the iPad in there looking at that, and that's only going to bring us that one route, unless we then actually manipulate it ourselves and change the run route. Guys will be so tunnel visioned on that they just follow that, or the driver themselves, the chauffeur is just listening for the cue right here, left here, and they're not picking up where, hey, today we got to pivot. We're not going like we would be dropping off DoorDash. We're going to a fire.
Yeah. I would selfishly look for another way in, just because I didn't want to be that fourth or fifth, because I wanted to get up and not miss out on a good job.
Right.
There's only so many good first 2 jobs that you're going to get to, or second or third. But when you're late in order, man, I don't want to be stuck outside. So right. I want to make every effort I can to get inside and get a good job. But
I'm with you. I agree. More the reason why you should just train on is so that you can actually get there and do something.
That's right.
So in the book, you guys mentioned before that truck company functions happen on every fireground, whether you've dedicated a truck, whether you have a truck or not, right? Whether you have an actual truck, we're talking about. How can departments without a staff truck company make sure those functions are still prioritized and assigned effectively? Now, the question is in the frame of training, so just giving you a preemptive, like,
So you know what,
from the training aspect.
Okay, so the first part is not so much a training aspect, but it is, and that is if you are operating in a system without truck companies, you absolutely have to have standard operating guidelines that fit your circumstances and to make it work for you. We have these SOGs in our county that detail, what the first two does, what the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, and the sixth. And it has to go in. Now, I know that not every fire is the same, and you might have to call an audible and change up the order. But in that order, you have a template of what's going to get you fire attack and what's going to support that fire attack, whether it be water supply, truck company operations. We always try to dictate in our world, the third is going to do truck work. Fourth has got a backup line. The fifth is going to do truck work as well. But the bottom line is it doesn't matter what you arrive on. We like to make sure we try to get our quints truck work, but that doesn't always work. So you have to be ready. So you have to understand and we call them functional SOGs. It's not positional, and that your what you arrive on determines your job on the fireground. It's the function and the necessity in that order you arrive in. But to go back to your answer in the training world is that, man, you really got to have this truck company culture instilled into your team, into your department, because, I can write stuff on paper all day long. If you're not going to follow it and you're not going to have an expertise for it, and you're just going to check the box, it's not going to work. So you have to have a strong training program that is going to dedicate a lot of your training, roster, or not roster, but your training curriculum toward truck company operations, whether it be searches, whether it be forcible entry. Everybody loves going out and hitting the prop, whether it be ventilation, a lot of it's building construction, understanding the materials you're up against, understanding, the buildings. Like, we have a lot of half stories in this area that have been plaguing us with a lot of problems lately. You want to get frustrated, get a fire in those void spaces on the upper floors in a half story. And let me tell you something, your operation just elongated like an hour because it takes you forever to get in there. But if you have good truck company operations that understand that, you get in those voids, you have different techniques to do it, then you're setting yourself up for success. But it has to be installed. I mean, if you're not having a training program that's accounting for that, and you're not getting a good culture in there, I'm going to tell you 9 times out of 10 that you're not going to have good truck company operations. And I'll tell you, when I go back to the fires that I've commanded or I've been on that just went absolutely shitty, that, we burnt to the ground, or, we didn't have good benchmarks. We didn't get good water in the fire. We didn't knock it out, or, we had multiple floors of fire. It's because of your truck company operations. Those companies did not get in the walls. They did not search for fire quickly. They didn't get opened up. And we just took it for granted that, hey, 9 out of 10 times, I bring a nozzle in, I hit the contents, fire, it goes out. Well, what happens when it's in a wall? Have you ever gone to a fire in a balloon frame construction? If you're not in those walls fast, you're going to have little fire, big fire really, really quick. And if your ventilation techniques suck, little fire goes big fire really quick, or you're pinned down, or you have, you're not doing anything for your victims inside. It's not coordinated. But I've also seen the opposite, where we give it too much before we're ready and little fire goes big fire. So there's a lot of things that have to be taken into consideration, and it all goes back to training, in my belief.
Oh, amen. And just speaking of the balloon frame, not picking on anybody, I've seen it myself where we were at a balloon frame, and again, we're talking about non-traditional truck work, not to steal the hijack the title of your book. Just, it's an engine company theme that we're talking about training on, but we're not just talking about traditional engine company stuff, because everybody has to do truck work. And just because you showed up on an engine doesn't mean you're not going to be assigned to truck work. So case in point, was at a fire, it was a balloon frame. Fire had not made it to the attic space, or into the cock loft or whatever. That's what we called it back home. Undisciplined, untrained engine crew people were assigned to the roof because the truck hadn't got on scene yet, the actual traditional truck. Simultaneously, the background on this is we actually had 2 fires in the area in the town I was from at the same time. So the truck was on one fire. and then the engines were on this other fire. So, IC sends them up to the roof because they had a lot of smoke in the cockloft. So they said, well, we'll open up like not an inspection hole, but not like a major vent hole, but just open that up, let a chimney out because we got a lot of smoke, but not enough fire. Well, as soon as we did that, we went from what could have been a room and contents to a working, fully involved fire. We burned that house down, and that's not the IC's fault. It was just a lack of discipline in the people that were doing the job then. And I'm not picking on any of those people. That's why training's so important. Just because you arrived on a truck doesn't mean that you shouldn't know how to do scene size up, shouldn't know how to do understand building construction, shouldn't know the signs of when to vent, how to vent, or when not to vent. And that becomes problematic, Thank God for good homeowners insurance, I guess,
We're already behind the eight ball not having truck companies. So, I know some guys from the urban market in urban areas are like, wow, what they're trying to sell with this Quint concept and make it, I just don't understand how it can work, because and let me tell you something, you hit it right on the head. There is nothing more effective in this world than having an engine and a truck beside each other. One's doing the work, they're going to work in unison, they're going to arrive pretty close together, it's going to happen. I will never have that in suburban America. In fact, I'm going over to City Hall later. I could sit there and argue all day long. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to have double companies in a firehouse. It's unfortunate, but I'm never going to have it. So the bottom line is we got to have a system to get those truck companies in place. But half our book is about SOGs. It's about the functionality of really coordinated efforts, what's important, what's needed. But half of the book is also training and attitude, because we know if that culture and that attitude is not there, I can throw this shit on paper all day long and it's worthless. In order for this to be an effective system, it's all about the human aspect. It's not about paper. It's not about SOGs. It's about the people performing the functions and the mindset to do it. I want these people who are in the front right seat, the captain, which we already talked about, the best job in the world. I want them to have the ability to go on a fireground and understand what needs to happen in that role. Like if you look at our SOGs say third truck, you're doing truck work. Well, what does that mean? Do I do ventilation? Do I do, search? No, I want you to make the biggest impact to that fireground. I want you to go to that fire floor. I want you to do whatever truck work needs to be done to make that fire attack go. I want whatever makes those searches quick, make it happen. I don't need to tell you, Captain, I need ventilation or this and that. I will, if I don't see it happening, I will tell you, but I want to see you perform. And that's the best system there is. When I was a battalion chief, when I was a traffic cop and I'd watch and my crews would know the SOG and I would make sure that they were that was a great, beautiful day. The days that I'd have to intervene and be like, no, go get another line or what, those are audibles. And, it's necessary. It's necessary to have that command presence. But, man, it's so much better when you can just watch your people work and they understand what's going on.
No doubt. I can empathize with that feeling entirely. I get where you're coming from on that. And another interesting thing, just that you were saying is, you said about that humanistic thing, that human aspect piece of it. I always say training's a culture, but anything we do, obviously training encompasses everything, how we get good at it, how we stay proficient, and how we stay ready. But it is a culture. So, if you find yourself in one of those situations where, you have to you're an engine company, but you have to do this work that wouldn't be considered traditional to what you would do as an engine. That culture is everything, that buy-in and then that application. Once they're bought in, once they understand the why and the situation and all that, like you said, because I've seen it myself and I'm young in my career, for my position, like it's just such an awesome feeling to watch it just kind of like unfold in front of you where you're like, I don't even really need to be here. Like, I'm not trying to dismiss the validity of what we do, right. But it's like, it's a nice feeling. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just really nice to just watch it all kind of come together.
Well, that's a great point because what we do happens well before the fire. This whole culture, attitude, and training aspect starts in this office.
Yeah.
If I have a terrible attitude toward training or I don't think it's important in my fire department, It's not going to happen.
Right.
And that's where it has to start right here. And then hopefully by the time you get to the fireground, it's like, oh, this is great. It all worked out. All my pre-work is all set up.
Yeah.
That's an ideal world.
No doubt, man. I'm with you on that. It's you're 100% right. So, talking about perfect worlds, right? In a perfect world, we'd all have fully staffed truck companies, and they would be an actual truck and not $2 million, ready to handle both interior and exterior operations. But that's not most of our realities. There's some people that are blessed, but most of us aren't, right? How do we balance ideal world of fireground tactics with the reality of limited staffing without compromising effectiveness or safety?
You really have to understand your circumstances. You got to take everything into consideration prior. You have to understand the resources you have, the people you have, the response area that you're going to. But more importantly, you also have to understand, what does it take for the coordinated fire attack? What's going to make the biggest impact on your fireground? And for us, and let's be honest, it's engine company operations, getting a line, water on the fire. But to make that happen, you have to then prioritize what are the supporting features of getting that, or supporting functions of getting that line in place. There's a ton of truck company work that has to happen. So when I have a 3-person company coming in and I'm like, okay, your truck, where do you think I want them? I want them on the fire floor. And it's okay. So I'll get into that in here in a second, but I want them on the fire floor to assist with that fire attack, trying to understanding the flow path, trying to understand, are they making headway? Do we need to locate the fire? Meaning, do I need to go ahead and do a little quick search for fire and for victims? Let's not forget the victim aspect of this, because that's why we're there. But also, have we located the fire? Like I said, do we have to start horizontal ventilation right away to make sure that our flow path is correct and we're getting to where we want to, helping out our victims, and the forcible entry happen, things of that nature. Okay, so I'm going to tell you, I am not against vertical ventilation. You might have heard me say horizontal, but the reason why we do that horizontal more than we do vertical is because what we're talking about, we can't split companies. When you have a 3-person company, you have an operator that may or may not get dressed depending on where you put the apparatus. But if you got the address, you probably need to be with your apparatus with the ladder. 2-person company as an internal team. Later on in our arrival, we dictate 2 companies on our first alarm for truck work. When company number 5 arrives, they're going to call ahead. They're now part of the truck group. They call inside. Hey, whoever's got truck, or they should know who's got truck. What needs to happen next? I haven't got the search done. Guess what? You're going to come help with the search. Or, hey, I got the search done. I need some outside work done. I need utilities. Or, hey, we haven't got a good ventilation profile. I know it's late in the game, but maybe that's the time we get on a roof because it's a stubborn fire. It's in the attic. Maybe that's the time we cut a hole. I'm not saying that cutting a hole or horizontal is always our answer, because there's always times for vertical ventilation. The reason why we don't do it a lot in suburban America is because of our resources. Because of the resources we have, it's easier to do horizontal ventilation than it is on the roof. Once again, UL did not bastardize vertical ventilation. You will see it's one of the most effective ventilation principles there are. It's just that we can't time it and make it happen correctly with our resources and our staffing levels. So that's one thing that you have to do when you're dealing with these lower staffing models, is to understand that, hey, truck work is not going to happen by one company in my world. It's going to get broke up, and all these functions have to be accounted for, but it's not going to happen by just one 3-person crew.
Yeah, no, totally. And it's smart to acknowledge that up front, because then you guys can pivot, but not have to pivot. You guys can practice for it, and be prepared for it, so that becomes the common theme, because most people that end up doing horizontal ventilation is a pivot move.
Yeah.
But you're doing it up front. So that's actually pretty smart, man. I think that's there's an article there. You should write one.
Yeah,
that's good.
A lot of times you'll notice that ventilation is done inaccurately. I mean, a lot of times if you don't take that into consideration, basically what we're doing is smoke removal. It's not ventilation. It's, hey, fire's out. Let's get this out of here so we can work. That's not ventilation. It's not coordinated with the fire.
Right, it's just a smoke ejection. That's all.
That's right. That's right. And if it's done correctly, there's a model out there, and I won't say what it is, but there is a communications model that's being practiced. It's being practiced in our area, and it's not a bad model. I think you know what I'm talking about. But you'll hear companies go on, level 1 staging, level 1 staging, level 1 staging. There's an active fire going on, and you're staging. I need you. Your ass is there now to coordinate that fire attack.
I called you for a reason.
The problem is that we don't train enough on that communication model. The communication model is not wrong. We just have some interpretation differently. And I think we've corrected it in our area. But man, I would sit in this office and I'd hear, I'd listen to calls and be like, engine 1's on the scene. I got heavy fire showing. I got 1 line off. Engine 2's on the scene. I'm at level 1 staging. My God, go to work. They need help, especially with the staffing. You're following, in your mind, you're following that. It's just, and I'm not beating that down. Like I said, it's a training thing. And once we got the more training involved in it, I think it made more sense.
No, I totally agree with that. And again, not because it's the theme of the show or it's my thing. Like I became so passionate about training because I could talk about, I was on an engine when back home growing up, we had a truck. I love company officer stuff. I do a lot of company officer stuff in the position now. And I know you can relate, between policies, procedures, regulations, guidelines, bureaucracy, that leadership management part of it. But I've just always been passionate about training because I feel like literally anything and everything that we do is accomplished through that training. Not going off of, where we're going with this, but, it's like you said before about having a quint, right? So some traditional truck people will try to argue, well, that's not a truck. Yes, it is. It's got a ladder on it. It's a truck, right? And in today's day and age, with the cost of these friggin' ladder trucks, you bet your ass if it's coming out of my budget, I'm putting a pump on that bitch. All right. Because I'm already spending all that money and that helps me out because not only because like maybe, I want to make sure that there's water on the fire. Yeah. Maybe that's not always going to be its primary assignment, but what happens if the engine goes, I almost said what I always say, tango uniform is how we would say it in phonetics. Right. But what happens if that happens, right? At least I have something, but that's just another aspect or another side of it. So, creating that culture where you're practicing for the things that we're talking about, the apparatus positioning, the dumping LDH or your supply lines properly and keeping that in mind, not following GPS, but considering the map book on what's an alternate route so that we're not going in the same direction to travel as the truck. If we are the truck, where we position our apparatus, what kind of truck work are we doing? Moreover, let's say we're the first on scene and staffing is there and we arrive with a quint. Are we pulling a line? Maybe, right? So these are things that we got to consider. And it goes on both sides, that there's that non-traditional truck and non-traditional engine work. And right. And I think that how that's accomplished in today's world in suburban America, which is 80% of our country, right? Is through training on that stuff. So I totally agree with everything you're saying. Go ahead.
One of the most important things that a training officer has to have, and that's situational awareness. You have to understand and you have to continually assess either whatever you're assigned, whether it's at the battalion level, the department level, whatever you're in charge of for training, you need to understand the strengths and weaknesses of those people. And a lot of the time, too, it's after action reports. I make a big deal about that. You go to a fire. Well, the fire went out. Nobody got hurt. Terrible benchmarks. Those are not the benchmarks we look at. We look at, how fast did we get water on the fire? How fast did our searches go? Did we file the SOGs? Did we, assist? Did we properly coordinate everything and really have adult conversations? You don't want to hide it. You don't want to be like, oh man, I really was great. No, you didn't. You sucked. Right. But you have to be honest in those conversations and then go back. And then the training officer takes it all in and they're like, okay, what do we have to perfect here today?
Right. What's the gap? How do we fill it?
Where's the gap? Right. Where's the gap at? And that's where you really go to work And that's really a truly effective training system. It's not like what did an NFPA say today, or what did ISO make us do?
Yeah.
I'm not beating down those organizations because the minimums that they set are great, but it's more than that. Those aren't. You don't let NFPA or ISO set your training docket.
Well, they're designed for us to have like a frame of reference to grow off of, though. That's the other thing that people fail to realize is if you just go off of the standard becomes that minimum part.
You set your docket, not them.
Yeah,
that's the important thing.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
And then to complicate it more, I worked on a squad company, so like we had not only did we have to do engine work, truck work, but we had all the heavy rescue assets.
Right.
I had a satellite next to me. The rescue, our heavy rescue got put out of service about 5 years before I became a captain. So I got assigned to a company that got it all smashed into one. We had a satellite company, but we had a big rescue pumper. I'm sure everybody's seen rescue. This was like a true, everything was on there. And it was like every day, I'd have to sit, I'd go over my people. It's like, okay, get the rigs out. We're going to do a rack puller mariner system. We do this every day. I'm like, yeah, because we also have a cliff in our backyard and people jump off it.
And that's
like every couple months, And it's like there's times where we have to reverse systems. We got to go down, we got to come up, but we still got to be a fire truck in the process. So like, how do you fit all that together? You just got to, like I said, you got to look at your docket and see what you actually do.
Right. Exactly. No, I agree. So the awkward question that if anybody's familiar with my show that I ask people, I always put it on a spot. So I always give the disclaimer up front. The question isn't designed for any type of narcissism or arrogance. It's because on the training side of it, everything has an objective, right? So the objective is what's the purpose? What's the goal? What is our outcome, et cetera? And I would be remiss not to say that we don't write our legacy. However, we 100% could contribute on a daily basis what will be written about us. So that's what I mean by that is when I ask my guests, because I sincerely mean it, and it's proven just in the squirming and the awkwardness from each one of my guests. In everything that we do, everything that you're doing, you're accomplishing, the moves that you're making, the people that you're touching, the message that you're trying to spread. One day, we're going to walk away from it. You're going to walk away from it. And I would like to know what would be your hope or your intent in what you're doing that drives you. What type of legacy would you like to leave behind?
Well, you gave me this question about 2 hours ago. So I've been sitting here thinking about it. And I'm not going to give you the chicken shit answer, but I'm going to give you not the political answer, but this is straight from the heart. I'll be honest. What I always wanted was, it's hard to put this in words, but it's like, if you were first due on a fire and you heard my voice as your second due, would you want me there? And the answer is, if you heard my voice and said, God, Silvernail's behind me, I feel great inside the structure. That's what I want. That's what I've always wanted as a fire officer, is for you to feel good that I'm coming in behind you. And, take that further. I'm not a captain anymore, but that was my goal back in the day, was to say, man, that son of a bitch is coming behind me. I feel great. We're going to push. But really now it's more on a fire service side. If what can you do to support the fire service, not just that first due company? And, I really would like my legacy to be that I was tireless in trying to get this new thinking of this functional standard operating guideline through, and, that's acceptable. But the only reason it can be the only way it can be acceptable is if you truly embrace it, you truly have training, you truly have that culture. So I'm not saying I'm here to change the culture of the fire service, or I want that to be my legacy. I just want to make, that I was here and supported something that provided firefighter safety, that provided something to give oomph, to those fire officers, and to support a system that works for us in the suburban market. And really that's it, and in all honesty, and I'm going to give you the fire chief answer, but if you're a fire chief, you get this. It's true. It's from the heart. And I want everyone to go home. I'm not here to wear these fancy badges and sit in this great office, but I want to give the tools and the ability for these people to have great lives, great careers, and to go on and to go home to little people and their families at the end of the day. And really that's it. If I could retire and not one person was hurt, harmed, or killed, that's it, you know.
That's an excellent answer, and I understand where you're coming from on it. Yeah, I always keep that in there because it's nice. It paints a picture of people, but also it's that empathy aspect. Like there's other, this is you and I talking, right? But fire engineering airs this, and there's thousands of people that look at this stuff. Somebody may connect with that. They may think, oh, okay, that's my purpose. That's the purpose, and I always say to people, it's not an arrogant thing to have some kind of goal or purpose. We do so much and we invest so much of ourselves into this for others, not just our department, but for everybody that we respond to help, right? Yeah. And the sacrifices ourselves and our families, the people that are closest to us. So there has to be some kind of purpose or drive. It can't just be, because I love getting soot on my face. Like then go in the backyard and light the grill on fire. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. It's just, there has to be some kind of true value in that. And anytime I get anybody on my show that I'm able to ask that to, I ask, because selfishly I'm interested, because most people that I have on my show, I've been fortunate now. Christ, I've had the show since 2018, so I don't even know however many years that is now. 7 years now I've had the show. But I typically have people that I'm close to or that I would consider somebody that I would break bread with. But so I'm interested for myself, but then I'm also interested in sharing that with the viewers and the listeners, because people should have a purpose and a goal and an objective, because otherwise what we're doing is ingenuine, right?
I want to put a quick plug in for our company if I can.
Yeah, that was actually, I was going to give you the floor, so go ahead, by all means.
So the training aspect, I was very fortunate as a young firefighter to be exposed to FDIC at a young firefighter age. I've been teaching there for the last 15, and I went to FDIC a good 10 to 12 prior to that. No, I would say 10. So I had that early exposure to what the world was like, and it really formed me. It formed my culture, my personal culture, which I think enough of us brought back, and it formed the culture of our own agency. And man, we were aggressive firefighters. I really do believe that. And it's only because, and we're progressive, because we learned from the best, and we were able to bring that back and adapt it to our world. That's where the suburban idea came from. I was like, I took all these classes from urban guys, and I was like, man, this is great, but I can't make all this happen on my fireground because we're different. We have different circumstances. So I really documented those different circumstances. And, I got into writing SOGs. And so that's where it went. But without FDIC, I don't know if this would ever been possible for me. Never. I mean, and I'm just saying that. What a great conference. And if you've never been, you're missing out, because it is a culture changer. It's not only an educational mecca of the entire fire service world, but it's a culture changer. And I failed to mention the first part of your question that you asked me. The very first question was, what was my influence? And it has to be my father. My dad was a fire chief who just absolutely killed for this job. He gave so much. He had passion. He had energy. And somehow I got lucky enough to where I was able to watch him over the years, get exposed to it, and get just completely immersed in this thing we call the fire service. And it's driven me. He was a training officer, by the way. And so that was his main goal in life, was this training. Back in the days of the curb mantle rope and all the inch 3/4 and the big lines, and you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, but those are the people that pioneered what we have now, because they were the ones that exposed what wasn't working.
The first time he went to FDIC, it was in Cincinnati. I'm sorry. It was Memphis. He went to Memphis.
Oh, nice.
That's way back in the day, but no, like I said, it's just, you run with it. You're very fortunate. I'm counting my blessings every day that I had these influences in my life, and somehow it caught. So, it's all about opportunity, and I never forget I had those opportunities. So.
No, that's beautiful, man. I'm glad you shared that. Thank you. Well, I'm I'm done. If there's anything else you want to say, but
Man, it's been great. I love talking fire. I got to go to a meeting later, but
yeah,
any day
that's
that I can talk fire, it's made my day. So
yeah,
those politicians better watch out because I'm coming in there fired up after talking fire.
right. You got the black tie on and everything, man. I see you ready.
Yep.
No, good stuff, man. I appreciate it. Well, anybody that's listening, listen. Set an objective for yourself. Set a purpose for yourself. Just because you're on an engine doesn't mean that you just pull hose. And just because you're on a truck doesn't mean you're always going to do truck work. Train for all facets of this thing. Train with the intent to be masters of each aspect of the career. Keep training, and just be passionate about what you do. But yeah, anyway, this has been Dave McGlynn with my guest, Chief Jim Silvernail. I want everybody to be safe, and we'll talk to you next month. Dave McGlynn with Fire Engineering Podcast, Training Officer. Take care.
Prepare, respond, survive. When seconds count, train with the best. Fire facilities, custom steel towers built for real-world fire training. Be ready, be resilient.